If not for this video, the Pope himself could come and tell me that this happened and I wouldn't believe him. But because of this video, it actually happened. So what you just watched was essentially an ejecting shell from a gun, bouncing off the wall at a gun range, and then landing into a box of partially opened ammunition on the back of the bullet and causing the bullet to go off. Now, I don't care who you are. You could be the most seasoned gun guy, you could be a complete novice, you could be somewhere in the middle. Anybody that watches this video looks at it kind of terrifying because it's scary. And the reason it's scary is because technically speaking, it really shouldn't happen, but maybe it actually makes more sense than we think. So if you think about it, right, you have a bullet. This is a Nosler 9mm jacketed hollow point, as you can see right there. And so essentially the way a gun works is it hits the back of that inner circle, and there's a firing pin inside of your gun that strikes the back of that inner circle, causing this primer to set a spark. The spark then ignites the powder that's inside of the bullet, and then that powder explodes and then drives the bullet down the barrel of the gun. That's essentially the very elementary way of how a gun works. So essentially, if you really think about it theoretically, or literally, anything that hits the back of this bullet hard enough will cause this to go off. Now, I've been shooting for about 15, close to 20 years now, and I have bullets everywhere. I put a video on my Instagram page not too long ago where I was basically taking bullets out of my pocket and going into my laundry room where you would see just a different array of bullets just lined up on the laundry table. Even when I go out and shoot, I'm taking bullets, I'm tossing them back in the box and doing all types of things that probably wouldn't make the most sense in the world from a standpoint of not having that happen to me as well. But it is very rare, very rare. It happens. It's actually not as uncommon as you may think it is. It is a kind of a one-off chance, but it does actually happen. But there are a lot of things in place with respect to bullets to kind of mitigate this. Like for instance, if you look at the bullet, that inner primer is recessed inside of the rest of the bullet. So that's basically essentially to protect it from if I set it down on this table or set it down on the floor or even just throw it on the floor. It kind of mitigates the ability for something to puncture it and cause the round to go off. Think about it like the outer rim of a tire for the wheel. You know, you have the rim guard on the tire sticks out ever so slightly. So if you curve a little bit of the tire, you won't necessarily hit your rim. That's kind of how that works here. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. It really shouldn't be that easy to set off a bullet, especially with something like ejecting brass flying out and then landing on it. But if you think about it, and anyone who's done a decent amount of shooting understands one thing. Ejecting brass is evil. They're just evil little things. They just manage to find themselves in all the most inappropriate places, like inside of your glasses, on the back of your neck on a hot day, or in between or in the shirts of a girl who's wearing something a little bit more revealing. Either way you slice it, there's something about ejecting brass that it just manages to go everywhere it's not supposed to go. And I can see in this particular situation how fast that brass is ejecting and then bouncing off that wall. And if anybody knows about how energy works, bounces off the wall with the same amount of energy, bounces into the case of ammo that's sitting on the table. I can kind of see in a one-off chance that having enough force to cause that to go off, striking it at the exact precise point where it would need to in order to have that happen.
Like as the bullet leaves the case.
Yeah, it was.
There is some.
It gets fired back at equal speed.
Yeah. Look, so there was a mild bit of burn, which that's what pushed the bullet out, but it didn't continue burning by the looks of it. It just kind of went.
It gets fired back at equal speed, straight back where it came from. Imagine just being like this, boom, and like lobbing it back.
It's like a game of really small, fast tennis.
Yeah.
So is that the bullet on the percussion cap coming back?
Yes.
So it delivered the bullet back to the barrel of the gun?
Yeah, it went, oh, there you go, have it back.
So now the question remains, What happens if this happens? Essentially, could a bullet that's not inside of a gun and going off, could it kill you? Is it dangerous? More or less, yes, and in some ways, no. It just depends on how you define danger or the possibility of danger. A lot of things go into causing a bullet to go down the barrel at the speed and the distance at which it goes. It's a very self-contained environment. And the reason why that is because that bullet needs the force of that self-contained environment to utilize as efficient as possible all of the energy stored in the powder from it exploding and basically causing the gun to go down the barrel. If this bullet were to just kind of go off in my hand, the casing will probably end up traveling a lot faster than the actual bullet. Largely because energy travels through the path of least resistance. This case is a lot lighter than this bullet. Not only that, a lot of the powder in there is going to be unburned. And the reason for that is because you're going to have a primer that's probably going to explode out. Then you have the casing that's going to explode out. So essentially, you have all of this wasted energy going in opposite directions, causing the heaviest thing to travel probably the least distance and the lightest thing to travel the fastest distance. So in this particular case, the thing that's probably more dangerous is the actual case if the bullet were to just go off. But even then, there's going to be so much wasted energy. I don't necessarily think we're talking life or death type situation here. There are videos that actually shows what happens. And if you look at those videos, you can notice two different things. In the videos where they're actually holding the case and then setting the bullet off, the bullet tends to travel a lot further. Well, that's because it has some resistance to kind of back up against, thus preventing the case from actually traveling and putting a little bit more force into the bullet. But in the videos where it actually shows the bullet just kind of sitting there, what ends up happening is essentially you just get a bunch of wasted energy, and the bullet travels some degree, and then the casing travels all over the place, and the casing may actually explode. It is dangerous from the standpoint that you could possibly get hurt. Would you die? That's kind of debatable. I'm not going to go so far as to say you can't die, but you probably wouldn't. All things considered, one thing we can take away from this video is this. Probably want to cover your ammunition whenever you're at the range shooting. Just take it, slide it into the box, and make sure that, if something does happen to hit the box, it doesn't hit the actual primers of the actual bullets. I've been guilty of this myself. I've been to the range plenty of times where I've had the boxes open. I've had a bunch of stuff on my range table, and I'm just going to town. I'm just worried about shooting. I'm not trying to be clean and neat and orderly. But as we can see, sometimes being orderly and neat is probably going to be the best bet, because if he did actually push that into the box, kind of set things aside, this probably wouldn't have happened. Now, thank God nobody actually got hurt. But there is something to be said about just taking the necessary precautions so that these things don't happen. As unlikely as they are to happen, the fact that it could possibly happen, we should definitely take some steps to mitigate those as much as possible. And one way to do that is to make sure that we don't shoot over live ammo. Another way to do that is just don't kind of whimsically throw bullets around, because you could find yourself in a position, even though it has certain features that are designed to prevent it from just going off, it could land on a jagged rock edge and cause it to go off. So just keep that in mind. Bullets aren't inherently dangerous outside of a gun, if you ask me. But of course, when you start adding the human element to the picture, well then, things change a little bit. So like I said before, if somebody told me this happened, I wouldn't believe them. But the fact that there is a video is almost even more unbelievable of this happening, because however you slice it, however you say, oh, well, of course it could possibly go off because that's the way the thing is designed. This is still one of those one-off situations and doesn't really happen that often, but it does happen. So be safe, understand how bullets work, take care not to just toss them around, keep them away from jagged edges. You'll be fine. I find bullets in my pocket all the time. Right now, there's a culture war against the Second Amendment, which is why I need your help spreading our message to counter their message. You can help do this by leaving a comment, sharing this video, and click the bell and subscribe button. Let my voice be your voice, and let them know you want to keep America tactical, because the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed wasn't a suggestion, it was a directive. Also, if you're wondering where to purchase your AR-15s are essential, I will not comply. I am the militia, the new Draco design, and your state-specific Keep America Tactical shirt. click the link under the Keep America Tactical in the description section of this video. Or if you're watching this on mobile, tap the small triangle on the lower right-hand side of this video and click the link in the description.